And we're live again.
Well, I'm certainly live, Craig. I don't know about
Hi,
you.
everybody. Right. Welcome to the Craig and Jane Show. Craig and Jane Hamilton Parker, the psychic mediums. And we always choose lots of different topics every week, but we weren't sure what to do. We were discussing on the way here. We'll obviously open up to all sorts of questions, but we thought we'd be talking a lot tonight about haunted houses, hauntings, ghostly experiences. Certainly kick off on that. And then we can open it up to whatever questions you like. So if you've got any interesting thoughts, questions, anything about ghosts and anything like that, start thinking of some questions.
Yes, it'd be a haunting, won't it, experience for us all?
Yes, a haunting experience. So we've been expecting you, everybody.
Right, we're going to say hellos first, Craig. So Matthew, good evening, Craig and Jane from a cool Manchester. Ian, 12, good evening, everyone.
Matthew Godwin saying, good evening, Domenico, who's of course in the background.
Domenico.
Domenico does all the work behind the scenes and makes sure it all goes nice and smoothly.
And Agility Bit says, hello from sunny Cornwall. It's sunny here in Winchester, isn't it,
Yeah,
Craig?
it's quite nice weather. We're coming down towards your direction actually tomorrow.
Glastonbury.
Going to go to Glastonbury tomorrow actually, yeah.
With family.
Hi Craig and Jane, I read your small book, Your Psychic Powers. Okay, thank you for publishing this book. It helped me understand a lot of things about psychics. Oh, that's nice of you to comment like that, Vera. And actually, that was one of my really, really early books actually, but it gives a very basic understanding of psychic things. So you might also like Psychic School if you've enjoyed that one. That's the second one in that series.
Joanne Smith, hello Jane, hello Craig, hello Joanne.
Good evening, all
Kitty
from
bits.
sunny but cold Manchester. Really looking forward to tonight's show. Thanks, Kitty Whiskers. And we're going to be talking about sort of some of the sort of haunted experience we've had to begin with of the show. We're going to move on to lots of things later on, but we're going to talk about one or two of the ghostly sort of stories. Chandni is saying namaste from New Delhi, India.
Namaste.
I like New Delhi. I've been there. Lovely place. I liked it.
CB.
Good place for cricket.
Classy intro. Thank you.
Oh, you like the new intro? Yeah, that works quite well, doesn't it? I think. That
Anita,
one.
hello from Athens, Greece. Hello, Anita.
Lovely Athens, Greece. Yes. Evening, says Sally. We know Sally,
that
of
girl's
course.
everywhere, isn't she?
Yes,
On
Sally.
Facebook, everywhere. I think we're being haunted by Sally.
You got some good stories, Sally, because we know, of course, who Sally is. Good evening, lovely people. Yes, so some of those ghost stories that your mum told us, remember?
Charmaine, hello from a cold Johannesburg, just waiting for a special couple to warm us up. God bless you.
Sounds a bit dodgy, that does. Hello from, what's the name of the place again?
Well, you're reading
Chattanooga, Tennessee, US. Chattanooga, I think I got it right. Paula, thanks for joining us.
And Jan, hello, seeing you two just makes my day a bit better. Well, thank you very much, Jan.
I'm glad you like us.
Lisa, good evening, Craig, Jane and Dom. Thank you, Lisa.
Hi from Canada. Do you still see Trudeau leaving politics? Yeah, I think he will. And I think Le Pen might even get in France yet too, because I did say that too. Hi, Craig and Jane from Ilford, Essex. Says Gin.
An Essex boy.
A gin. You see, gins are a ghosts, aren't they? We're going to be doing all ghostly stuff tonight to begin with. So if you've got any interesting ghost stories to tell us or questions to can ask us about, we're glad to hear from you in your comments.
Right. Hi from 100 degrees in Cheverdale, from Angesley, California, from the where?
It's Glendale, Los Angeles, California, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Last week was cold and rainy.
Yeah, we've had
you should go to somewhere nicer where there's constant weather, like Australia, for example, where they've got it even worse. Hello, Craig and Jane and Domenico, says Jamie Baby Accardo. Thank you for joining us again, Jamie, and thank you as one of our patrons who comes on. And we always look out for the patrons, actually, when your questions come up.
That's interesting. The CB, I had a ghost attached to a painting, only the kids hear it yelling. We ditched the painting and it was over. There's a great story, isn't there, about that painting? That was called.
Yeah, that was called The Green Lady or something.
No, not that one. It's where he wanted to forever be young.
Oh, you're thinking of...
and he was grey and that.
What's it? Oh, God, my brain's gone now. I know who you mean, the story. No, there was a painting, a famous painting that It was that green lady,
And
sort of
the
a
boy.
Chinesey sort of painting.
And the boy that cried.
And the houses used to burn down, but always the painting survived. There was a number of sort of great big fires, and the painting always survived. And it was something they reckoned about that painting that was weird.
Yeah, the painting I'm thinking of, he wanted to be young and it changed all the time. Do you remember? It's a classic.
Dorian Gray, I think you're
Dorian
thinking
Gray,
about. Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Dorian
And
Gray.
yeah, the paintings, actually, interesting that I suppose you can get spirits attaching them to certain objects, like cars. Certain cars have often been considered as being haunted. Like James Dean's car, he had a Spider, I think it was. Domenico will correct me if I'm wrong with that. I think it was called a Spider. And that car had all sorts of weird stuff go wrong with it. And they reckon it was kind of haunted and cursed.
James Mansfield's car was like that, and she had a feeling she shouldn't have gone in this car, and her head was decapitated. Big glass lorry took.
People might still be able to hear us. Yes, hopefully you guys can still hear us. A little bit of an interruption there. I hope we're not going to get some spooky stuff happening as soon as we start talking subjects
Queen
like
Victoria
this.
Behind.
Yeah, weird stuff happens.
Got disconnected all of a sudden.
Yeah, so why we get suddenly disconnected there? We start talking about spirits, and this place here in Winchester,
It's
I mean, it's
1803.
Victorian, and it really is. Sometimes when we're in here at night and things, we're just locking up after we've done the show.
Footsteps.
We keep hearing weird stuff going on in here. So
Patty, hi from Virginia. I'm finally the patron. God bless you both.
oh,
God
thanks,
bless
Patty.
you.
I'll look out for you then. Drop me a line. Drop in the comments of the patrons. I was trying to interact with people. And we've got some. I've got actually on the patron stuff. By the way, Patty and all the other patrons that watch, we're going to be doing a Zoom about some. I've got some of the people from the first circle I ever joined when I first got started about 100 years ago. It was now, I think it was. And I've got some joining me to teach you about sort of how you get started as a medium and how I got started and how my friend got started. And it'll be quite a bit of banter there. So join us on that for the Zooms. Look out in the Zoom, in the Patreon area.
Right. Vera says, is there really a lot of spirits and balls of light orbs in graveyards? Yes, it has been known. And also wisp of like smoke coming out of graves as well. We've caught that on camera.
Yeah, I'm always a bit suspect, though, to be honest, about what people pick up in cameras, because I wrote a column for one of the magazines for about 10 years or more, where people used to send in, Phantoms on Film it was called, and they used to send in their photographs, and I could explain most of those pictures, because things like when you see these wisps, because people always go to the graveyards to take the pictures, you know, so as soon as you get some strange anomaly on there, of course people jump on it, understandably. But like the wisps you said, Jane, can often be caused by, if you take a cold camera, a camera out of a hot pack into a cold environment, you immediately start to get a bit of mist on the lens, and that can create a kind of a misty effect.
No, I know a story of a nurse, and she was in love with this captain of this ship, and he died rather young, and she didn't say goodbye to him, and she actually found where his grave was. She just took a photograph and a wisp came up and she caught it on camera.
Yeah. I think some of those, I think when there's an interesting backstory to these photographs, I think it makes you think a bit more, because that happened to occur at exactly the right time, the one you're talking about there, didn't you? But then other times people seem to take random photographs, and every single little camera anomaly, like an orb and things, is always assumed to be a ghost, and it isn't always.
Natalie has just donated $1.99. Is it true that spirit looks scary? Well, to look at Craig, he's enough to scare anybody.
Remember,
No.
we've got to separate all the time between Hollywood
Fantasy.
and also all the silly ghost programs that have been on television over the years, and the reality of it. Because, I mean, if someone sees a ghost, of course, for a person that's sort of perhaps sees a ghost and then is close to it, it's going to be a very scary thing, because most of the sort of images with ghosts is about our fear of death. It represents our fear of death in the movies. That's why it's such a popular topic, because we're scared of it, and it's something we can't address, you know, so it haunts us, literally. But the spirit world is not scary. The spirit world is people we know. But perhaps when talk about ghosts, we're talking about something else. Perhaps we are, with what we call ghosts, are talking about what are like recordings in the energy of the area, you know, so that an imprint has been left of something that happened in those places that was really
Residue.
scary. And that's why we
Residue.
pick up on that, residual energy, as Derek Okora called it, I think, a lot of the time. The idea that there's something in the energy around that a clairvoyant person might see, and you're actually replaying something from the past. And that's why that would be scary.
Mm-hmm.
But the spirit world's not scary. It's made up of good and bad people. It's about as scary a place as the earth is, I suppose.
Yeah. Well,
Which is pretty scary sometimes.
Joanne Smith says, haunted dolls you get. Well, Danielle had a haunted doll, that clown thing there. Hero.
that-
Yeah, and our Domenico hated it.
Domenico's,
and things seem to have gone wrong, and they got rid of it.
it really caused a lot of bad luck,
did.
didn't it?
It's like those dolls you got in
Genuinely.
the 70s, like the clown.
Yeah, it was a
hero.
really weird sort of doll.
Yeah.
And you know, and it seemed like everywhere that doll went, there was trouble, wasn't there?
Yeah, and Danielle had a doll when she was very young, a black doll from South Africa, and that was quite eerie and spooky, wasn't it?
That had
Sort of
some
like a voodoo doll.
There had some strange stuff associated with it too, didn't it?
Yeah.
And so I mean, these dolls are kind of we look at them, don't we? And they're kind of inanimate, so they look a bit weird because they're like a human that's got an emotionless face in a way, and that's why, like dolls and clowns as well, can be very scary to us because they've no human emotion in it, and yet it's still a human face. But yeah, that's certainly that case, wasn't it, with Domenico's doll and that?
Yeah.
What
Well,
happened to it?
Domenico's-
I think
They
Danielle
got
sold
rid-
it in the
no,
end. didn't
they
she?
got rid of it.
Yeah, she sold it on eBay.
Yeah.
And she got a lot of money for it, but it had a genuine history to it.
Oh, that's
It
nice.
was a really
little tip.
weird story.
I love the orange and yellow. Orange and lemons, very joyful colours, sweethearts. Yeah, I always think yellow is a happy colour,
Yeah.
and that orange is a vibrant colour.
Yeah, they're both nice
Oranges
colours.
and lemons.
Well, that's the end of our singing career. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Craig and Jane and Domenico. I've spent the afternoon reading Messages from the Universe. Well done. You're still awake. I'm halfway through, and what an amazing read. Absolutely mesmerising. I love it. I read them all.
That's
Oh, well, that's
nice.
really nice of you to make a comment like that, Joanne. I think that's my favourite of my books. It's quite a longer book compared to the other ones. And when you finish that, go on and read Messages from the Universe and have a look on Amazon Prime, if you can get it wherever you are, because I made a movie. After I wrote that book, I went to India to do the remedies I talk about in there, and my film there, Messages from the Universe, I think really was an important piece of work for me. And I think if you've read Messages from the Universe, you'll love that book, actually. You'll love that movie on Prime. There's a copy of it on YouTube as well in the Patrons area,
I
but
like this
it's
one.
up there on Prime.
Agility Bits, I had a ghost attached to a mirror. The mirror was given as a present, but eventually I gave it away. Once it was gone, the air of the room felt lighter and happier. Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of superstitions with mirrors, because I can remember my grandmother, if there was thundering and lightning, quick, cover the mirror up with black and
Yeah.
things like that. But some people have looked in mirrors and they've seen actually images, sometimes of past lives, what they were, and sometimes they've seen an image of a ghost.
Yeah, the first mirrors I think they made were made of, I think, some form of polished material, like
Yes,
onyx or
yeah.
something. They were black.
Yeah. Black and
And
gold.
they didn't have the silver type of effect. So the mirror always had this weird spookiness to it, that it was slightly dark and it seemed like a look into another world. And
Underworld.
yeah, we often look in mirrors, don't we, and think there's another, what's behind around the corner over there? As a child, you think, is it the same round the corner there? Just like Alice through the looking glass. And I think mirrors have had a very strong superstitions associated with them, certainly. Not just the fact
7 years
seven
bad
years
luck.
bad luck, of course, and people on certain days, if you
Light a candle.
you
try
light
to see
candles
your
on
lover.
Christmas Day, you will see the dead. If you eat an apple at certain times, you'll see behind you, you'll see the person you're going to marry. There was all sorts of fascinating superstitions with them.
Right. Now, Frank says, when I was a child, I used to go to a boarding school in Derbyshire. We had a ghost who would knock on the main door till they upgraded to a doorbell. Then it'd ring the bell. It never did. The story was in a book of Hauntings of Derbyshire. Well, we never heard it knocking on the door, but you used to hear footsteps on the gravel. Yeah, you do hear footsteps of visitations with the people that are coming from the past.
Yeah, and we've had it here, haven't we? I mean, we've locked up, and this building is completely empty when we leave. But we're sat in here, and we turned all the lights. Everything was ready. Everything was turned off. All the electric was off, and we heard footsteps walking across the ceiling here. There was no reason, because there is another room up there, but it's completely sealed off because, you know, there's nobody up there. We know, because we'd have to lock and open the building. So you do get this weirdness with that sort of... I did a great trick on my mum. I made a little machine that would, every time you turn the light off, it would make a breathing sound.
God.
And as soon as you turn the light on again, it would stop. It's a tiny little piece of electronic device.
God.
A real naughty as never.
You sure your mother didn't drop
Actually,
you on the head at birth?
I did that when I was an adult, actually. Yeah.
Right, Nana, we have a ghost that's attached to something that I bought it in a charity shop. How do I get rid of it? Well, I suppose it goes back to the old saying that you smudge all the corners of the room and cleanse it, isn't it?
Would you? I don't know. I don't know what you would do something like that. Probably send it back to the charity shop. It couldn't have been that expensive if it worried you. Clearing ghosts is something that I think is full of an awful lot of misunderstandings. If it's a really serious haunting, and there's really... Because we've been sometimes to places where I've seen poltergeist activity, and I've seen, like Jane talked about, mists. I've seen mists running across the floor in some houses, and there was really there did seem to be something malevolent in the place.
We went to a haunted cottage once, and there was all like oil, clear oil running down the wall, and a cold feeling, and we could hear a spirit voice, and we had to go out to the garden. Do you remember, Craig? And under this tree was part of an old-fashioned blue and white jug, and apparently going right back centuries ago, a little girl fell down the cottage well.
Yeah, and then we tracked it. We picked up on that.
Yeah.
And then we found it in the books, didn't we? Found it in the parish records.
Yeah.
So we knew it was something real. And there also used to. Do you remember there was also a hand used to appear on the wall? She used to say, we didn't actually see the hand, but she used to say a red blood-like stain would appear on the wall that looked like a hand. The woman said, yeah, it was. So that was a long time ago. With situations like that, clearing those things requires full mediumistic engagement with the spirit and to encourage it into the next world, basically. I don't know how you do with a bit of furniture from the second-hand shop, though.
Yeah. Well, Vera says, why do people see the same ghost doing the same thing over and over again, like a looping? Well, it might be attachment to that person, and they might be trying to get a message through to them. It doesn't necessarily mean they're harming them. It's like looking at a show reel, isn't it? Like going over and over again.
Yeah, I think what Vera's referring to there is this idea that like the grey lady always walks through that wall, always walks through that wall, always walks through that wall, and everybody keeps seeing the same repeat image of the idea.
Mike?
My mic. Oh, not again.
What are we going to do with him?
It's the wire on this mic, I think. We're going to have to do something about these. Become a patron and buy some new mics. Are we working? Good. Yeah, so we had these idea of these loops repeating over and over. It kind of fits in, I think, with this idea of glimpses of history in some ways. You know, that it's like a repeat of something. You've seen a memory. You've seen something that's been left in the atmosphere of a place. And perhaps the more times people connect with it, the more it magnifies that thing, because, you know, one person's seen it, adds energy to it. We add the energy to it to make it happen.
When I lived in a very old mansion years ago in my 20s, I was a nurse. They had the central heating on full, and suddenly there was a load of cold air going past, and all these curtains were swishing around. And suddenly I looked up. I was in sort of a half sleepy state, and I saw a really old nurse holding up these bandages. She was all in grey. They used to refer to her as the grey lady. And apparently it went back in time that the soldiers in the Second World War were placed in this mansion. And this nurse used to stand at the end of the bed. And I remember putting my hand up because I thought I'm dreaming. And my hand went all the way through her. And I pulled it back again. and then she disappeared through the wall.
Yeah.
And
And
people have
often when
seen
you
her
see,
going down the stairs.
when I've seen a spirit physically like that, it's like they're real. It's not like
Well, she was
transparent,
real.
ghostly people, is it?
She was real.
Yeah, they like someone stood in the room. I mean, I've quoted it before. When I went to my, when it was really shocking, I went to the funeral of my Uncle Gordon, and I saw him sat in the chair, a chair a bit like this it was, and it was his favourite chair, apparently. I said, "Oh, hello, Gordon, how you doing?" And I said, "Just a minute, this is his funeral." And I look again, and he's gone. And it was like clear as day. I saw him there, sat with his cigar, talking and looking real happy, you know, and you see them, I think you get a glimpse of something, and I think that's how, for me, it works, and perhaps it works differently for other people in different ways.
Well, sometimes there's people that throw themselves off cliffs. There's a famous cliff, isn't there? It's called, and
yeah, there's a few, actually.
yeah, and you can hear the vibration of those people talking. You can hear them when you're standing there.
Yeah, the whispering cliffs and things like that. But of course, some of this stuff, it obviously gets mixed up sometimes also with people's fantasy. Because if someone tells you there's a ghost there, you'll start seeing things perhaps that aren't there. But I think when you see it for yourself, then you think twice about, is this just folklore or is this something real?
Yeah, I was Mystic Rebel here for you, Craig.
Okay, well, we're Mystic Rebel. Okay, I've always liked rebels, so I'll answer your question. Craig, do you think BBC got its karmic comeuppance when their Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, etc. got exposed after that Secret Swami documentary and turned out to be a false reporting after some time? Yeah.
Who's the Secret
Swami was when they did a hatchet job on Sai Baba.
Oh.
And there was
Do you know what? I thought that was really cruel because they had this beautiful dog and they said that this other person had healing powers and they threw a cobra or a snake and you saw this dog go in a convulsion to die. I really, really would have liked to got hold of that person that done that. No,
Yeah.
the person that threw the snake wasn't a producer.
No, I would get hold of
It
the
was the
producers that
debunkers
encouraged
doing
it.
that, and this poor dog went into a convulsion state
Yeah.
and screamed. An innocent animal that's licking somebody and welcoming that made me so angry.
Yeah, well, they did a rotten hatchet job on Sai Baba, and actually, if you start digging deeper into some of those stories, you see that
All
there's
of
an
them
awful lot of
Christians.
conspiracy behind it. And I think there was a Christian plot
And
tied in with that
Catholics.
somewhere, because the Vatican were getting really upset by so many Catholics were going over to Sai Baba. That's a contentious
Miracles.
issue, and I also did speak originally to the man that gave the original so-called exposure of it all, it doesn't hold water with me whatsoever. But did the BBC get their comeuppance? Possibly. I think the BBC have got an awful lot to answer for. I'm not a great fan of the BBC. I would rather watch the Craig and Jane show on YouTube, frankly. I think the BBC is a mixture, isn't it? You'll see David Attenborough on there and you'll think, wow, thank God we've got this programme. You'll see perhaps other programmes like Who Do You Think You Are? You think, fantastic. But then you see such a lot of trash, and you also see so much sort of liberal, over-liberal, and nothing wrong with being liberal, but over-the-top liberalism going on in the background of the BBC, which I think upsets me. It's not balanced. It's not balanced with this news. So maybe they got some karma. Yeah, perhaps.
Right. Pamela says, I was in church and saw a lady walk down the aisle. Her feet didn't touch the ground. A very slim and beautiful lady. It was a shock. I think that was me, Craig. My shoes were hurting me.
There have been actually incidents where...
Well, there are people that I can remember seeing one with my brother Patrick. We actually saw like a hooded figure, 6 foot off the ground, floating in the air, and it went through the doors. There's glass doors.
that one. He went.
Yeah, he was so frightened because he thought it was coming
went to
for
church,
him that
didn't
he kept going to church for 3 months.
He's horrified by it. He saw it so clear to him. But actually, just picking up on that as well, when you see it float, you know, you think, oh, that's a bit, you know, spirits don't float across the room, you know. And they've actually had some reports where they've talked about Colin Wilson, who's a brilliant person to read as well. After you read all my books, go and read Colin Wilson's books. But he wrote a bit about one or two of the ghost stories, and they found that sometimes when the figures were seen to walk across at a higher level, they then looked at the previous records and there had been staircases in those places, or there had been other levels, or the floor had been 2 foot higher. So that spirit was actually walking where that person who had been from that time, say it was Elizabethan times, where that floor would have been at those times.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit of a proof again.
Yeah. I can remember another story. My brothers, when they were young, they had a thing about air rifles like boys do, and they went into this Fort Wallington it was, and Timothy was quite adventurous, and he saw a black hooded figure suddenly floating come towards him, and his natural reaction was to shoot it. And it went all the way through, and I think he never ran so fast home in all his life, tripping over, and it taught him never to go there again.
I know, we've had quite a lot in both sides of our. I remember your mum being scared because she was laying in the spare room in our house, wasn't she? And the blankets would keep moving off her and lifting her. The sheets would keep moving.
Well, they kept the sheets.
She wouldn't sleep in that room.
No, she came downstairs. She said, "Jane, can I see you a minute?" I said, "Yes." "There's a happening upstairs." I said, "What kind of happening?"
She was really seriously worried, wasn't she?
She said, "I laid in bed and the bed finally shook," she said, "and the sheets turned down and down and down." She said, "And I didn't look up. I held on to the knob of the drawer." I don't know why. And funny enough, the next day we went through the Hatfield Tunnel, and this is absolutely true, and your exhaust pipe came off.
No, car in front's exhaust came off.
Yeah, it came off. You went over it, and I saw like these spirit rods go through the windscreen, the airbags come up, and the car, our BMW, should have gone over, and it was like an angel moved that car at the side of the road.
Yeah, it was very lucky we didn't flip over that day.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole exhaust system came off the car in front completely, and you hit it at speed.
Yeah.
You know, I always drive nice and slow.
Well, my mother was saying, "I've got my carrots and bread in the car." She won't worry about the car. I've got my carrots and bread in the car.
But it's funny, we've had quite a few things like that before. You get sort of like a visitation like that before something happens. Like when we went to...
we went black.
Yeah, that was a paracut. He keeps getting paracuts out there.
Yeah.
And my mic went again, but that happens often.
It's a black parrot.
But I lost a bit now. Yeah, do you remember we had those weird lights, didn't we? That I mentioned it before on this program, where we had that ball of light. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. A ball of light in the middle of the room appeared, and that was the day before we were going to go and help with that haunted boat to move that evil spirit that they were worried about, wasn't it?
Mm.
But that was so
I can remember
brilliant
another
a
thing.
light. It was just vibrant.
I can remember
light.
another thing. When the children were very young, I know this sounds a bit stupid, but I went upstairs for peace and quiet to watch Dallas. Anyway, suddenly a great big orange, what you call a ghost ball, suddenly appeared, and it was wobbling around the room, and it was all grey and misty. And I thought, oh God, don't say that, TV's on fire. And I happened to look at the plug, and I thought, it's not plugged in yet, and turned it. And your natural reaction is to put your hand through it. And it was there I'd say a good 4 minutes, and then it disappeared like that.
Yeah. I mean, we've both spoken.
And stop there. And then suddenly it bounced all the way down the stairs, and I've got a big antique mirror, and there was a big purple light and blue light suddenly bounced on this mirror, and I suddenly saw an image of a nun build up, and the children were so frightened. They said, "Mummy, can we sleep with you tonight?" And the doors were banging like that,
really?
going frantic. And then I thought, are we on a ley line? And then when I looked, because we've got woods opposite, and the woods are mentioned in the Doomsday Book, where King John used to go hunting there.
Yeah.
And I think what happened, years and years ago, there used to be a convent, right? And I think we had a visitation from a nun from a convent.
It was all owned
past.
by the church. I know it
Yes.
was all owned by and that orange light's a strange thing, actually, because I mean, I had it as a child and you had it as a child. We used to see I used to see an orange light very clearly.
Yeah, but
and I
mine
used
used to
sit
follow
and
me
watch
around.
it, and he used to follow me too. And we both had that, and other people have expressed a similar thing. Other people have said so I've had emails from people saying I've seen an orange light following me, and I think, well, that happens to me too, and it's not something. I sometimes people I think can mistake sort of optical illusions, like if you push your eye you see sparks and things, or if you floaters float around on the eyelid, people mistake for spiritual things, but they're not. But this was something that was not like an optical thing. This was something that followed you and followed you around.
Well,
It
Lisa
seemed to have a
said,
mind of its own.
Yeah, Lisa said, a Chinese man in spirit communicated with a medium, tell my sister, remove hers, does she mean mirror, from her room as bad things were happening. She removed it and the dark energy went. It'd be interesting to see what she had.
Yeah, well, it could have been something, so it might be in relation to some other thing like a mirror or something like that earlier on. So yeah, sometimes, you know, you get the messages from the spirit world that tell you what to do. And
Well, I wish they tell you what to do and make cups of tea.
yeah, well, you have to remind you to bring the cups, otherwise we would have had one tonight.
Frank.
When I was a young child, I remember seeing a dark figure at the end of my bed. I used to talk to her and I was not afraid. I think it was about 3 or 4.
Yeah, but funny enough, children, the perceptions are so clear that they actually do see things. I can remember when Justin was little, he saw a great big dark cloud and he saw his great-grandfather's face, just the face. And he said, it's my grandpa's birthday today, because nobody believed him. And when we looked it up, it was absolutely spot on, and he never knew him.
I had exactly the same as a child. When we the first house we were in when we were kids, I saw my granddad on the Parker side of the family. I saw him stood at the bottom of my bed, you know, and for some reason Granddad hadn't been around for a few days. But little did I know that Granddad had died, because they were keeping it from the kids. They didn't want to tell us quite yet. They wanted to get things sorted out before they broke it to the children. And I said to my mum, Granddad's in my bedroom, Granddad's in my bedroom. My mum was absolutely horrified. She was terrified because she knew he was dead, but I as a child didn't. So, and I saw the dog Biddy came in with him as well. So it's, you know, this is seeing a spirit. This isn't, I would call, a ghost. This is when you see what I would say a spirit. This is a visitation from those we love in the spirit world. I'd put a distinction between a spirit and a ghost, personally. Do you want to read it? Shall I read
you can read
it. Jane Stroke Craig, is the UK one of the most haunted countries in the world? By the way, also I live near to the Valentine's Mansion in Ilford, which is a ghost story. Have you heard of it?
No.
No, I haven't. I don't know. Actually, it vaguely rings a bit of a bell. I probably read something somewhere.
I would say there's lots of haunted places, not just the UK. Ireland's very well known for legends and hauntings.
Oh, Domenico told us all about the stuff in Italy. I mean, Italy's absolutely full of some fascinating stuff. I remember when we went to Venice. Do you remember we were going to go around Venice, and instead they took us around the bay and took us around all the places like the leper colonies and things like that. I remember Uri Geller did some fascinating insights into those sort of places. He did a great program on it, actually. But I don't think you could say UK is the most haunted, because any place that's got a real history to it, quite often will have that residual energy to some of the old buildings. You know, Germany, France, India. I mean, some of the strange things in India I encountered sometimes too. Sorry for joining late. Just wanted to let you know that tomorrow, that's the 10th of April, is Rama Vami in India, which is the birthday of Lord Rama, and hence widely celebrated as a birthday of Sai Baba of Shirdi. Oh, is it? Ram Avatar. Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. So that's a pretty auspicious time. And Rama's Rama and Hanuman are considered, you know, being very
god.
In fact, I've been told that I've got a very good astrological period until April next year, and then I've got to call upon Hanuman to negate the negatives in my horoscope. So probably important this time next year will be important for me as well if it falls on the same date. Yeah. Anyway, that's interesting. I'm always very interested in the Indian link between their religion and astrology, actually.
Right. Maria, what's the difference between a spirit and a ghost? Where a spirit is somebody that's gone over to the spirit realm and they come back to communicate to a living human in the physical world. A ghost is coming back, trying to come back as a human form, can be quite transparent, I suppose. It depends how they passed over, and they've got a presence that they also want to know, but they're using, if you like, the communication skills in a different way from the spirit world, aren't they? They're just showing themselves.
I will define it. I would say a spirit is those people we love. It's us in our astral form, gone into the next world, and our spirit people, the people we love, the people we don't even, can communicate from that spirit world, which is perhaps another dimension. Perhaps a ghost, I think, is more like an impression that's left here. It's a recording, I think. I subscribe to the idea that what we would call a ghost is something that's been left in the atmosphere. I'm not so convinced that there are trapped spirits. I suppose we've had some
Actually,
stuff
there
where
are
there's been
ghosts.
trapped spirits
There are ghosts,
who
Craig,
haven't
that
passed
are
over.
trapped in between the two worlds. They can't
Yeah.
accept they've gone over, so they still
So that
try
could
to
be
hold
another
back.
form of, you know, active ghost of some sort, or spirit of some sort.
Trapped.
But I can't see how I suppose some spirits are so clinging to this plane. You know,
They
they're
don't
like
let
they
go.
talk about in the East, the hungry ghosts. They
attachment.
can't be satisfied, and they keep coming back to this world
Mm.
and trying to cling on. And I suppose you could call that an earthbound spirit as
And
opposed to a
animals
ghost.
come back, ghost animals. Black
Yeah, yeah.
dogs are well recognised, and there's lots of animals that make return journeys.
Which would suggest that animals have consciousness of their self and can therefore survive death, just as humans survive death, you know, and their form continues. So there's a lot you could talk about with that. A lot of it's about definition, I suppose. Yeah, but I think a lot of what people think of as ghosts are recordings of some sort. And then
Right.
there could be the very, very rare earthbound spirits.
Right. Ireland. Do you have fairy rings in UK? We have fairy rings in Ireland. People have seen lights in around fairy rings at night over the centuries. There is energy. Yeah, we do have fairy rings here because I've seen them in the grass, long fairy rings, and there's a different kind of energy.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, you get the fairy rings of the mushrooms, of course, because they have a
Yeah, but it's
mycelium,
not
so they
doing
grow in a
mushrooms.
circle.
Nothing to do with myceliums.
And you
Craig.
often get the will o' the wisps, which can sometimes be gas vapors and things like that.
No, there are fairy rings.
We have it here in Winchester, actually, up on Winchester Hill there. It was a spot which is just actually from out our window we could see it actually. There, Aleister Crowley and others used to practice witchcraft and things on there. There's a good video that Domenico and me made actually. If you have a dig round on the list of videos we got here, but up on the top there's a maze, you know, that was cut into the mud, and those were sometimes thought of as fertility mazes and magical mazes, and so in a way we have all sorts of strange megalithic type of things like that. And these are mazes, which are labyrinths, I think are another fascinating thing that can perhaps link back to early attempts maybe to communicate with the spirit world.
Or the underworld.
Or the underworld, yeah, that's true, we would have thought about it like that. And yeah, certainly in the history of our ancient history, there's still sort of talk of possibility, were some of these spirits and gods something more than just ghost stories, or were they perhaps actual visitors from other dimensions?
Now, Jen says, when my brother was killed in a road accident at 10:30 p.m. at night, my aunt saw his face at a window and a ball of fire rolled across the carpet. She knew something happened. That's sad, isn't it?
So a sort of ball of fire.
Yeah, energy.
That's a bit like we were describing with that orange light. So that's perhaps what she was
It's a
describing, the same thing.
physical phenomena.
Yeah,
And after 10, we have
that's
the
a good
universal
story.
healing hour, don't we? My aunt saw his face at a window and a ball across the carpet.
But
She
the-
knew something had happened.
But that ball of fire happened to Jan there at exactly 10:30, to her aunt rather. It happened at exactly the same time as the accident happened, you know. So that would surely be some form
Energy.
of evidence to proof,
Yeah.
isn't it, that this
Yeah,
is not
and-
imagination, but it's something real.
Yeah.
And very often, you know, there's a whole lot of, as well as ghosts in the there's a thing called crisis apparitions, which the Society of Psychical Research logged a lot, and Gurney and people like that, and Sedgwick logged all those. And some of the things they found with that is often people would see the ghost of someone at a crisis point, not necessarily a death, but that person would appear to them and they would see them in the room at a time
warning.
of crisis, which could be, for
A
example, at
warning.
the time of a birth, an accident happening, or some traumatic event of some sort. They'd see them in the room for no apparent reason at the exact time without knowing there was something wrong. So maybe we as humans also have an ability to perhaps project ourselves to each other and let others know that there's a warning that we're in trouble. You know, it would make evolutionary sense for that type of thing to happen. So
I just imagine all ghosts leave blueprints of their former selves, Craig.
well, if we can project ourselves like that at a time of crisis, couldn't we also leave an impression? You know, so that's what I say about the recordings from the ghost. Perhaps we've projected something into the environment that stays there.
Now, Agility bit says, I saw my husband after he passed, and it was so real that I thought I dreamt his death and he was still here. Oh, it's beautiful. Obviously, there's a very strong love and very strong energy there that he was showing himself.
I think there's a special period when a person first dies. There's a certain energy left in that person's body that's gone from their body. There's a certain amount of still an attachment to the physical world that can actually help show the person. For example, we think that there's an astral body and a causal body. The causal body is like the spirit that moves on into the next world. But there's also this astral body that perhaps breaks away and has its own animated form for a while. The Buddhists talk about a tulpa, that it can be animated by the mind. But that aside, I think a certain point comes when a person first passes over, they get an opportunity, there's enough energy there to make a communication that they wouldn't be able to do later on after a period of time has passed after the death. Where there's still that energy connection with this world, and I think not always, but sometimes they get an opportunity to show themselves in a very physical sort of way.
Right, Alexandria. My understanding is that Aleister Crowley was a black magician. I would not purchase his tarot deck. In fact, Aleister Crowley came from a very rich family, and his death was in Eastbourne. He died on his own. He was absolutely stony broke, and as I say, he dealt in trying to get into all sort of power things over women, of debauchery and men, and he was high as a kite because he was in drugs. And at the end of the day, he had no psychic powers or abilities whatsoever. A very sport, aristocratic family that inherited money, and in those days he used it to his advantage to seduce women and men. And when you're talking about tarot cards, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get Aleister Crowley's tarot cards and powers passed on.
No, it doesn't. And actually, his tarot cards aren't very useful. I find the ones I've seen, they're big, quite a big card. They're quite, the imagery on it is a little bit, I think, over the top, and it reeks of arrogance to me. I mean, I think the pack that I like is the AE weight pack, which has quite clever symbolism that is self-explanatory in many ways, even on the minor suits as well as the major arcana. The minor arcana cards each have an image on them, so it's very easy to work with those. And the symbolism, I think, in the AE weight pack far more interesting than most of the tarot cards around, unless you kind of know the cards really, really well, and you can use like the Marseilles pack and things like that, which don't have much imagery on them at all. It depends how purist you want to be, but I like the weight pack personally, and I still feel that they're very useful with tarot interpretations. Crowley, can't be bothered with. It's too arrogant looking.
Caroline says, when I was young, I woke up floating right up to the ceiling. I was panicking. I could see myself. Then a quick thought. I was aware of a cord. I went back into my body, so I ran into my Ma's room. The same thing happened. That's astral travelling, Craig.
Yeah, out-of-body experiences. I mean, it happens. It happens
Stress.
Occasionally. I had it happen. The most vivid one for me was when I was round about adolescence time, which happens a lot for people in adolescence, these out-of-body experiences. And I remember at that time, I saw myself stood outside. I stood outside my body, and I saw myself. I was on the ceiling, looking just like you've had there, looking at myself below. And then I panicked. So I thought, "What's gone on? Am I dead?" And I remember coming back. It was like a whip going like that. It was like a whiplash. I came in bang into, and I woke up in an absolutely drenched in sweat, and with the recall of this incredibly powerful experience. So that was for me a big turning point from my first, because I knew from that point on that you could survive outside the body, because this was such a real experience. No way was this anything like a dream. It was completely awake.
I also came out my body twice, and I looked down. I could see my body on the bed, and I felt my consciousness all the way around the room. And then I thought, am I dead? And then I suddenly, like Craig said, panicked, came back my body and came out. and then suddenly all the I want to say all the electrodes and neurons in the brain went bang, 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 and then I came back into my body.
Yeah, for me it was like that. It was like an explosion, Someone, if someone had set a gun off in the room, it would have been louder than the sound of a gun being fired.
Neurons in your
You know,
brain.
something to do with the brain, and perhaps the reconnection of the spirit body with the physical body. But I think we can also travel in the astral planes, as it were, not necessarily by physically leaving the body in the way that Moody and people talk about, where we kind of separate our spirit body from our physical body. I think that we can all connect to the universal mind, and this is why when I'm, say, for example, doing a reading for someone in America on the phone or on and I can't see them or know anything about them, I can tell them what's in their room and things like this, and say your room's this colour and you've got that plant in that corner and you're looking out on a scene like this. How do I know that? I've not actually physically left my body to go and see those things. I somehow have connected to what I think is the universal mind, and we are like a huge mycelium like the mushrooms have. You know, there's all this interconnection, a bit like the internet, and my mind can travel there. My perceptions for a short period of time see that area. And I think we don't necessarily have to physically separate from our body. So I think when that's things like you and me had happened to us with those out-of-body experiences we described there, I think that's something more to do with the physical frame and something what happens perhaps when we actually leave this world. It's a taster perhaps of what happens after
Or
death.
perhaps sometimes people under extreme stress, or sometimes people have come out of their body on the operating table and they can repeat word for word what the surgeon and nurses have been talking about.
Yeah, now this is what I mean. It's different to, I think, remote viewing, what I've described there as well. It's like, it's closer to what we would experience at death, where we step physically out of our body and our body is dropped. And that's the end of it. Well, anyway, last questions for the night, guys. Thanks for joining us. Guys, going quick. And don't forget, if you subscribe to the channel, if you're first time here, hit the little bell thing in the corner of the screen, down the bottom there, down where it says Craig and Jane Show. You'll see a little bell thing, and then you can become a follower of us. But if you really enjoy this type of thing, come and become a patron. Because this whole setup we've got here, this is not some green screen. This is all the physical set that we have here for us. And it would be, if you subscribe as a patron, you can help us to move this forward. Help us gradually. We're trying to get to the point where we're going to build a full spiritual centre, where, for example, we'd have something like a stage where we can demonstrate mediumship. Or you can even come, and if you're a patron, come along and watch us as well, because we've got a show going on at the Concord, at theconcordclub.com.
On May the 26th.
On May the 26th, Jane, thanks, I forgot when the date is. And you can come and see us live. And you can also, as a patron, you can of course communicate with us through Zoom and all the lessons we're doing on there and things like that. So that's going to be, we call it Spirit Calling, the evening. It's an evening of clairvoyance with both of us. Thursday the 26th of May 2022 at the Concord Club, Eastleigh. So there's still some tickets available, although they are going quite quickly now. And yes, follow us on Jane's Instagram page as well. Jane's got her own channel as well as this one. You know, this is my channel. Jane's got her channel as well. So get both, because Jane's putting out quite a lot now. She got a new camera today too. I bought her a new iPhone.
So I'm definitely going to be putting out a lot, definitely.
So they won't cut off at the end like you were getting problems.
That's because I've got a new phone.
But Jane's got a different energy to mine, so go and have a look, and you can find out all Jane's take on things as well.
It just comes to me. I have thoughts and inspirations from the spirit world, and when I wake up in the morning, I just say to them, "Show me what you want me to talk about, whatever it is," and it just comes.
So just do a search, Jane Hamilton Parker, Psychic Medium. You'll find her channel, and we've got a few other channels around as well. But you know, subscribe to all of them, and our Facebook page, of course, if you want to as well. So Annette is saying, "Hello, Jane and Craig. I want to mention about Jack the Ripper walk. I was quite frightful, pointing out where he killed women. Aleister Crowley was associated with Mrs. Bush lineage." Well, we did a bit with the Jack the Ripper, as we said the other week, and we'll have to do a proper programme on him, won't we?
Yeah, we actually saw the shore where there was still bloodstains from the last woman he killed.
Yeah.
And they thought Jack the Ripper was actually a Polish man from an asylum. They didn't think it was the Prince of Wales.
Yeah, I think ultimately, my conclusion was it was the Polish guy that did
That's
it.
right, Craig.
I mean, we were going to do a whole program on that. We did a lot of preparation for that actually, and it would be still quite nice. We would do that with our friend Louis, weren't we? But it would, yeah, it's still a fascinating story when you get into that. He was a still an interesting story, intrigues everybody to this day. Has anyone seen proof of these big cats stalking the British countryside?
Well, it might be. I believe there are big cats. There might be lynx or something like that. Somebody might have got rid of them or let them loose.
Yeah, I think
They're
most
like
cases they thought it was a
panthers,
panther.
Yeah, panther, big black panthers. Somebody might have let an animal loose like that, and then it's bred.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, who knows? They also reckon there's an English Bigfoot too, don't they? Because I remember our friend, the film producer Damien, was looking into that.
No, Jenna says, no predictions on Ukraine tonight. Now, I think we're going to not do that tonight on Ukraine because, you know, let's hope Ukraine gets all the help they need, because we're seeing it on the news, and it's quite daunting to watch the news, especially what we watched yesterday, children killed in the railway station and that, and a horrific one on the news today, where this mother saw that this child's head was blown off at her shoulders and all blood and everything. It's awful. So I think we're going to give it a little bit of a rest.
We thought we'd give it a rest from Ukraine today, and we also did the Jimmy Savile one. We were thinking about doing again. We thought, oh, it's such awful energy at the moment with it all. But I think we talked about it before. But I think in the end, Ukraine will pull through, and Ukraine will get its country back. You know, but. Oh, the cost is so high,
I think it's May that we'll see a turning point in Ukraine.
Yeah, the Nadi said June, didn't it?
I felt the end going towards the end of May, and we'll see a turning point.
I think we'll start
to see 100% with that.
We'll start to see it. We'll start to see it getting better soon. I think the Russians have already pulled out of the north of Ukraine, which is reassuring on one level. They're regrouping in the south because that's where they want to make a corridor from the Crimea right up to Russia. You've got a link then if you move all your tanks back and forth.
We won't talk any more about Ukraine, as we said. Yeah, Craig, do you want to do the next one?
I think Odessa will stay, it won't fall. I think Odessa will keep strong. What an interesting show this evening. I'm here following you from Hudiksvall in Sweden.
That's nice.
And I might have even pronounced that correctly, I don't know. The one who finds is an interesting one. How do you suggest we clear out ghosts and spirits? Sometimes no matter what we do, they don't leave. They're quite stubborn.
Well, how many ghosts have you got, I'd like to know?
I actually think one of the best ways to deal with them is energy, isn't it? And it depends where you're from and what you like, but I love the Gayatri mantra from India. And in India, they believe that the Gayatri mantra has a sort of protection to it. So that can be a very powerful, positive force to clear energies. It's a positive, beautiful, when we look at the meaning of the words, it's a beautiful thing that brings into asks for the enlightenment of all beings, basically. And the other one, tomorrow, as our friend earlier on said, it's the Rams is a powerful energy. And the simple mantra Ram, 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 Ram is actually considered to be another very powerful clearing mantra. It's the final words that Gandhi said when he died. His last word was Ram, because he was obviously perhaps using that as part of his inner mantra. So that's another good one that can act as a protection.
And also purification in each corner of the room. Fill a bowl with salt and water and smudge with sage as well.
I always think set up a nice energy around yourself.
Yeah. That's
the important thing. And I think mantras and song and cheerfulness, negative forces hate that sort of thing. Nana's saying, nice to see you again, Nana. My daughter, age 18 months, opened my fridge door and spilt the milk all over my floor. When I went to clean it up, it spelt in perfect letters the 3 initials of a friend of ours who died earlier.
That's a phenomenon.
Wow,
isn't it?
yeah, these things happen, don't they? I mean, what can you say? Amazing, you know, synchronicity, coincidence, or spirit communication. We don't know. These things are, you know, mind-boggling, some of the oddities that happen like that, particularly at times of death. In the movie Ghost, a ghost went into the body of the medium. Has that actually happened in real life?
It's happening to Craig right now.
Yeah, it does. This happens a lot. We've seen it a lot, actually. The spirit will talk through trance. I used to run my circle. I used to do some trance work where the spirit would talk directly through me, and we had some good, interesting proofs of it too. Because again, with trance mediumship, where the spirit actually speaks directly through you, you want proof and evidence, not just people talking cosmic nonsense. You want actual proof. And in this particular case, it was the person that came through had been murdered in a gang war, and described how he had been had his head cut off afterwards. And this is the spirit talking through me, and over a drug deal in a car park. And I didn't realise it, but the person that was there, a whole circle of people, they come from Bristol where this had happened. And I had never met them before, and I knew nothing about this. I didn't even know they were from Bristol, and apparently that was the person that was all 100%. So again, when you get the spirit speaking through, they got to give you some proof. And in Ghost, because we met Patrick Swayze and talked to him about the movie Ghost a little bit, they did do an awful lot of research into spiritualism to make sure that they got their kind of way that a medium would work correct. And although it was Whoopi Goldberg was doing the channeling, wasn't she there? Although she kind of a bit over the top character, it is a bit like that. And evidence was always given. So I thought it was a brilliant movie, that Ghost. It was groundbreaking.
Right, Mystic Rebel, Craig and Jane, have you had the experiencing someone that you know will pass away even though you can't tell them? That happened with your mother, because though your mother was not very well December, the spirit world said that she wouldn't be here and she'd be gone by January 22nd, and that happened, Craig, didn't it?
Yeah, we kind of know when it's going to happen. It's harder to know things for yourself because you're close to it.
That's true.
So often, for example, if I wanted to get a communication from the spirit world, I need to go to another medium, and I can't think of hardly any really good evidential mediums out there at the moment. I did write to a mediumistic friend of mine from years ago, but I couldn't get in touch with him. It's very hard to find really good evidential mediums, and it's very, very hard to see it for yourself. Even though you're in touch with the spirit world, people think, oh, you must know what's going on. We don't. We get glimpses, we get bits. So as mediums, we'd have to see another medium to make a communication. But then sometimes we do, like you say, we do pick up things that are about to happen around us that are close to home as well.
A nature lover for you, Craig.
What's that? Oh, yeah, next week we're going to do this as a nudist show,
no,
aren't we, Jane?
I'm not.
Yeah?
Goodness me.
We see who's the fattest. If you can't wobble, you can rattle. Nature lover said,
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult to deal with and or accept when you both came into your mediumship?
No, not really. For me, it was natural because I was born like it. And I used to hear clairaudiently, clairsentience, and I used to see spirit at an early age, and I didn't particularly want it neither. And I had a great grandmother that set me down and said, listen, don't tell people what you can see and hear spirit, otherwise they think you've got religious hallucinations to frighten you to death.
Yeah, and for me, I think I'd always been like, both Jane and I were born mediums, really. But I mean, for me, I resisted it a lot, actually, because I didn't want to get sucked into spiritualism at the time. I didn't want to be doing readings for people and things like this. And I was kind of resisting it because I wanted to get on. I wanted to be an artist. I had a business to run. Wanted to get the real world sorted out. And a lot of the people I thought were crackpots that were mediums. And I didn't really want to get sucked into that world, but I did. Now I'm one of the crackpots, and I'm glad I did. But I think a lot of people that do take the mediumistic path, you're kind of pushed down that path if you want to or not. And I think sometimes, for me, in a way, the fact that I tried to resist, I think was a good thing. It's like if you give someone power, it's best to give the power to someone that doesn't want the power, because then hopefully they'll handle it better, because they're not getting sucked into the addiction of power. So I think the resistance that sometimes comes when you're a medium, and your resistance to wanting to be a medium sometimes, is actually, in a way, kind of a good thing, because hopefully you don't misuse the power if you've got that, if that happens to you.
What's the name of Jane's YouTube? It's Psychic medium Jane Hamilton Parker.
Yeah, because you haven't got that many followers yet. You haven't put. You can change your name to Jane to a name. You can't.
Yeah,
We'll give it a name once you get over so many followers. You can do that.
I think I've only got 5,200 followers at the moment. Not a lot.
Yeah, well, actually, we might be able to change them. I have to look at that for you. Actually, get a name on your channel.
Happy.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy.
Call it Jane. Call it YouTube / Jane Hamilton Parker. But we'll see. Carmen's saying good night to you. So we're coming to the end now. How are we doing on time? Oh yes, we're coming to the end. Beautiful Jane
thank
and
you,
Craig.
Lottie.
Thank you, Lottie.
Bless you.
Have a good week and thank you from Israel.
Oh, lovely.
Have
Thank
a
you
good
very
week
much.
too. And don't forget, we're on every Saturday night, same time, same channel, 7 o'clock at the moment. And so just make sure
12 says, thank you, Craig and Jane. Thank you.
And don't forget to become a patron too if you've been enjoying this. You can see
Shanti,
more
and
on
same
the
to you,
Patreon channel.
Peace, as well.
Thank you both and have a nice weekend,
Yeah,
says
we're
Fleming.
certainly going to have a nice weekend tomorrow.
What's left of it? Yeah, we're going to go down to Glastonbury. So if anybody's going to Glastonbury, we might bump into you. Sending out happy energy, says Caroline.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for a lovely cosy chat this evening. Looking forward to the next one, says
thank you.
Jan. Thank you for joining us again.
Oh, that's nice.
Hearts from Lottie. Good questions, missed there. Hope they are answered next week. Don't want to hear about evil things.
No, none of us do really. We just
No.
want good, beautiful things.
Be nice if the world could just be
It's
all
a beautiful world, but it's the
fairies and
people in it at the
butterflies.
moment.
Great show, great company. What more can you ask for on a Saturday night? Thank you, Craig and Jane, for a great show. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you,
and
Kathy.
for all of you.
Thank
You're
you.
also supportive, also in all the comments afterwards. You know, it's nice that
Craig,
you
read
enjoy
this.
it. Happy Ram Navami, Jane and Craig, Sai Ram, says
Sai Ram.
Mystic Rebel.
Jenny, thank you for an interesting chat as always. Thank you, Jenny.
And we got another one. Yes.
Paula.
Paula.
Great show.
Great
Have a
show.
good
Have a
evening.
good evening.
Thank you, Paula.
So I think we're coming to the end now. We're going to be saying our goodbyes. So thank you again for all joining us. Don't forget, follow us again. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and become a patron if you can. So we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Would you like to know more about the paranormal world? Craig Hamilton Parker's books are now available on Amazon. Explore the future. Discover what happens after death. Unlock the secrets of your dreams. Learn to develop your own psychic skills.